Hey, 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 happy Tuesday, everybody. Have you ever been accused of being a copycat? Meow. Well, I have been, and I'm very proud of it. So today we're going to be talking about stealing like an artist. You know my favorite theme. Working off of an existing piece of art, an art quilt, and someone else's work and just stealing it and running with it. But what if you don't have the pattern? So today we're going to be talking about how because I'm not an expert, I'm just somebody who quilts, but how we could possibly strategize and come up with a game plan to replicate someone else's work. So before we get into it, I would love to say happy Tuesday, everybody. It is January 25th, and I'd love to see who's in the room. Let's do Rob's roll call. We've got Fizz, and she's on the broom broom, and my pencil is just... I have too much stuff going on in here. But we've got Fizz, we've got Mr. Deline, we've got Stuart, who his glass is always half full or almost spilling. Is that what he said? Overflowing. Here we go. My glass has always been half full or even overflowing. So welcome, Stuart. We've got Valerie, and we've got Angel, we've got Miss Emma Armstrong over at the Curly Seams podcast, and we've got I'm going all out of order today, so we've got Cecilia, we've got Yoan, who is somehow by the pool. Don't get your device wet, Yoan. If I missed anybody, hello, and I'm so glad to see you. In the live chat, you may see some people have a magical key or a little wrench there that says that, hey, I'm one of your moderators, and gosh, I'm so appreciative of our moderators, because those Russian bots have been invading the live streams, and it's just not mine, it's everybody's, and they like to see all, and like there's this language that happens, and they're given the boot. So I appreciate the moderators. We've got Yoan over at the Go Ahead and Make Me YouTube channel. We've got Stuart over at the Wool Patch. We've got Tracy and Emma over at Curly Seams, and they do it out of the kindness of their hearts. But if you have a moment, we would love to show them some love. So jump on their channel if you like. Subscribe to them. I'm sure they would appreciate it. So yeah, welcome everybody. And speaking of Russian bots, if you ever notice that you try to type into the live chat and try to put a link, we have forbade any kind of links because that's what the bots like to use. So unfortunately, you'll have to just tell us about it, but you can't necessarily provide the link. So apologies for that, but it's the necessary evil when you're going live and people want to hijack your show, and that's we're not here for it. My glasses, on the other hand, they need a cleanup because I can barely see through them. So apologies for that. And I'm wearing my little topper that wants to fly off, and we'll get going on that. So here, they're normally black, but then I can add just a little bit of maroon color just because I love it. And I'm just noticing that we have a background. The background is still a remnant from last week. I didn't change that. You know what? That sucks. We're gonna put a different one. And there we go. That's what we want, because that's what today is all about. So, speaking of today's show, let's get to it. So, we are going to be deciphering other people's quilts, and let me know in the comments below if you have just been able to see somebody else's quilt and said, gosh, I really would love to replicate that, and let us know like what your strategies are. Hopefully during today's show you're going to find some new tips that will be helpful to you. Maybe you're one of those people that you would love to replicate someone else's quilt, but you're just not sure where to start. So today's show is for you. What else? I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I found. So I know that there's people out there like Yoan over at Go Ahead and Make Me. He loves to make his own patterns, and he loves to, he doesn't want to do anybody else's their art. He wants to be fresh and new, and it's all his, and original. But then there's people like me who don't, and there's some kind of debate out there, even in the university world. I found this interesting article over on Artsy. It's a lovely little website, and it talks about art. And what they found, there was actually a study out of Japan that this article was from 2018, and the two professors, and I believe one was an architect, and then the other one was who was it? So an architect and a professor at the University of Tokyo in Japan. They divided some art students up into two different groups, and they allowed some students to express themselves with an everyday mundane object, and that was their inspiration. And then they gave other students, another group of students in the study, other people's art, and they told both students they had the same assignment to go and just try to come up with some creative, and they had to do something every day. And then they had some expert artists who came in. They were allowed to look at everybody's work, and then once they previewed all of the submissions, then they were able to rate the students from 1 to 5. And they found that the students that had been given a little bit of liberty to work off of someone else's art, the creativity, they scored much higher in that group compared to the group that didn't get the inspiration. So copying someone else's art, stealing like an artist, is an amazing way to boost and enhance your own personal creativity. So I'm very excited. I know that there's now academics in the world who support my cause, and I'm very happy. So with that in mind, I have one of my favorite books that Erin ever gave me. It's the Red and White Quilts. This was the Infinite Variety, and I love this because it is such a huge coffee table book, and it was a quilt show that was a private collection. This woman, and unfortunately she just passed away within the last year, I believe. But the owner of all of these quilts that she had amassed this collection, she donated, and they were put on display. And I love this book because it is just so amazing with, like, it's just a page turner to me. This section is nothing but patchwork quilts, and you can see all of my little red tabs. I have lots of little red tabs that says, yep, I want to do that one. And this was actually one that I did try to replicate, and I absolutely had so much fun doing it. And if you notice, I'm somebody who loves my books so much that they're mine. I don't want to give it away. I know I'm never going to give this away. And I actually write in pencil in my books, and it's such a liberating experience to actually use your books in a way that's not just, oh my gosh, it's my precious and I can't possibly touch it. It's like having a loved cookbook that your family member, or you have one from descendants, you have descendants, those people who are younger than you that carry on the future generations, and the ones that are before you are the I just had it. Antecedents. Is it antecedents? You guys correct me in the comments. But you get what I'm saying, is that, you know, if you have something that is that cookbook or that quilt book, write up and like stuff pages in it and just like mark it up, and it would be like the one thing that when somebody else receives it, they're going to be like, it is really you that they're getting. It's not just some dusty book that's never really been shown any love. So Let me show you just a little bit of some of my favorites in here that I would absolutely love. And they go from the straightforward where it's really repeated patterns. So like I love these stars, and I love kind of like these look like, what do you call it, sand dollars. And then I have this one. I've always wanted to do like a Liberty quilt with the big stars. And actually I just did do one of these, which is the miniature, and that needs to get on the long arm. And then look at that. I was inspired by the peppermint. That's where that original idea was. And I'm thinking that that quilt is going to be finished for Christmas 2022. Maybe. Get off my back. But yeah, if you have never seen this, maybe you could put it on your Amazon wish list. I wholeheartedly would love for you guys to share in just all this inspiration. You are really going to be thankful that you got it. But here I landed on this guy right here, and I know it's a little far, but that was my inspiration. And this whole quilt, there you can see that there's a really large border, and I thought, I just love this. This one's called the Gordian. I'm sorry, it's a version of the Gordian knot quilt, and there's different ones that she acquired, and I just thought it was just so much fun. And I thought that this one, although it's pretty in my opinion pretty straightforward, it's still, when you come to terms with, okay, I think I can do it, but then how do you do it? It becomes more complicated than what you think. So the first thing I did was I really just grabbed my mobile phone and I just took a picture of that, and then I sent that to myself and printed out a lot of copies. So I have this size that is just on printer paper, and it's in black and white. And I found that this, actually every time I've ever tried to replicate someone else's quilt, this is the strategy, and it really does work for me. So when I'm looking at this picture, the first thing I want to decide is, I'm not thinking about color, I'm not necessarily thinking about size to begin with. I'm just really trying to just get the first impression. What is this quilt? So I'm going to take you over to Barbara Brackman, her block-based software, and there's a good reason for it, because when you're thinking about your the anatomy of the quilt, or even a quilt block, at its smallest and it's at its most simplistic, easy for me to say, most simplistic base, you have to decide whether or not it's going to be generally an equal or an unequal bunch of blocks. So if you can see up here, I have that this main one here is 3 by 3, and this would be like a 9 patch, and this one is all even, meaning every block is the same size. Now, the other way to look at it is it uneven? So you see the outer 4 corners are a different size than the inner 4. And that was important to me to actually understand and appreciate the difference between those two types of anatomy of a quilt or a block, because upon closer inspection of this, then I started immediately understanding that yes, I could break it down into a 9 patch, or I could break it down, but I understand that my sizes are not all equal. And as long as I understood that first principle, smooth sailing. So when you're looking at someone else's work, you've settled on that, specific, there we go, that specific layout. And then let's really get into breaking what is this quilt. So now I'm taking you to my printout. Ordinarily, I don't do this through any kind of computer. I stay away from computers. Everything is with a good old pencil, an eraser, and a ruler. You're going to need a ruler. But before we get into taking and getting caught up in any kind of numbers, we're not quite there yet. The first thing that I want to do is just to understand, what is this? What are the pieces? If I were to break this quilt into units or subunits, what are the pieces? So the first thing I do is identify what makes this a quilt. So here's the original. And then the next one would be, okay, I understand that there's stripes involved, and I have the stripes throughout the entire quilt are really working in my favor in this one because they all are playing along with the same size. Now, I'm just showing you that I've magnified two different places in this particular quilt to emphasize that yes, all of my stripes throughout the quilt are always consistent. So boom, so I can just consider that when I'm starting to take measurements. We're not at measurements yet. We're still going to identify parts of this quilt. So, like many people, you may want to start out in the very center. What is the center of this quilt that if I were to break it down into some of its parts, we have a center, and then that center is, I'm considering just the white block. I'm not considering anything else, just that white block. Then, which one is this one? Number 4. Okay, number 4. Did my things get out of order? I think they got out of order. Let me go, I'm gonna pop out of here and go into my desktop. Bear with me. So I'm gonna go into my desktop. I have all of these laid out for you nicely, and it'll help if I actually play nicely. There we go. All right, so now I think we're good. So we've identified that the stripes are all even. I know that there's a center square, and the center square is just going to be that white box. And then we've got 4 outer squares. So if this is the inner square, then just to the left, to the right, above it, and below it, I actually have 4 more squares that are the same size. So then I say, okay, then I have what I'm calling these inner fences. These inner fences reside at the left and the right and the top and the bottom of that center square. And then I've got what I'm calling the inner half pyramid. That inner half pyramid is just to the left and right of that the outer squares. And then after that, we have the, oh gosh, what was this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think this is a 9x9, 9x9 patch. And it's just a red and white 9x9 patch. And you may, along the way, just to start, as you're identifying these pieces, you may want to take account of how many of those throughout the entire thing that you think you're going to need. But if you save that to the time when you're getting your measurements, that's great too. After that, you have your outer triangles. So if you look at the very center, we're going to work our way left. So I have the center square. To the left, I have my inner fence. To the left of that, I have a square. And then to the left of that, even still, there's a triangle. Now, when I'm breaking up the pieces, I am going, and I want to make sure that I'm emphasizing this, you may want to have a conversation in the background playing to say, how do you make this? Because it may be advantageous for you to include or exclude additional information. So just like we had on the, let me go back here, we have those squares on the left. So you have the center square, and then to the left, right, top, and bottom, you have those squares, but they actually look like houses. Now, depending on how you think you could construct this, you could experiment and include the outer triangle part of that square, or you could omit it and then just do it afterwards. So it's kind of fun. It is a little bit of experimentation, but you could try it either way. And I don't think that there is a right way to do it. It's just a matter of how you think you could be successful. So we've got that, and then we have our outer, what am I calling this? The outer pyramids. So that is this is 1 and this is 2. There's actually 2 pyramids or triangles, and then as opposed to this guy right here where you have a half pyramid or a half triangle. So I'm thinking about how many I might have of those and how I might build those. This is also where it might get interesting. You could include the outer border as you're making these pyramids, but, and I'll show you this just to make better sense of it, but I'm also thinking about how I'm cutting things. So if I'm thinking that it would be easier to construct that whole pyramid wedge while including the border, I also have to think that, you know, as I'm laying out my strips and then I'm actually getting to the task of cutting, if I'm making the most use of that fabric, if I have that big border that only resides maybe on the bottom of the pyramid, I'm not able to flip upside down as I'm doing my cutting. So for this reason, I decided that I was going to make the outer border its own unit. All right, and then we have our stripe. We have our and this is a border. So this would be, for me, border number 1, which is, again, it's just red, white, and red, and same size, so I don't have to worry about any of that. And then the last thing is the outer border, and that's where I was just saying that I've got the top, the bottom, the right, and the left to work with. All in total, I think I had roughly 12 different subunits or units that I had to figure out in order to understand this quilt. So that was like just me grazing through the existing inspiration, and it's really not so bad once you start just marinating it and just really just analyzing what it is that you're chasing after. So let me take a quick break, and I'm gonna go to the room and see how this is going. Go into the room. All right, so Stuart says he's very much a copier and not very good at doing stuff from scratch. And the nice thing I will say about that, Stuart, is that, you know, we're all our own worst critics. We have all of these really great plans. We've got talented friends, but like you can only see yourself once somebody who is brand spanking new comes along, and then all of a sudden you say, oh, I guess I really do know what I'm talking about. And I don't know if you guys, this is kind of in that vein, is that this is a book that I am thinking about really devoting to 2022, and it's called Ditching the Imposter Syndrome. And if it's very big in the tech world, you know, you're sitting in a group of people, and so let's say it's at your local quilt guild, or you're online in a chat group, or you know, you're at a business meeting, and you think, you know, you have this conversation going on and saying, you know, I'm doubting myself, and you know, you don't really push yourself and really allow others to see you shine, because you feel like you have to dim your own light so that the spotlight isn't on you. And it really, we show up to these events and we want to be part of it, but then we feel like an imposter, and like, God forbid, people are going to find me out. And I'm telling you, I mean, like even for me personally with the quilt stream, you know, of course I feel that way. Of course I feel that, you know, there are Tracy, Emma, you know, there are people that are so talented, they have so much more expertise, and I'm putting myself out there to say, hey, I am not a teacher, I am not an expert, I can tell you what I know. And as we get more vulnerable, and as we show people, hey, this is what I do know, and this is where I struggle with my quilting, you know, you can only get stronger. So, you know, maybe you guys, I would love, I would love a Zoom group, maybe a couple times a month to talk about this book, because it is just something that we all maybe once in a while feel like, hey, am I an imposter? You know, not to belabor this whole conversation, but it was like, I, for a long time, had a hard time owning that quilter label and like, oh, Chip is a quilter. Stuart was once so kind on his website, and he's like, ooh, Chip's a proper quilter. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm not. There are amazing people out there, and it's very difficult for me to say, oh, I'm a quilter. But you know what? I mean, in 2022, I'm ditching the imposter, and what is it? I'm stealing like an artist. And if this sounds good to you and any of this resonates with you, hit the subscribe button. Where is it? There you go. Subscribe, like it, ring the bell. If not, all right. So let's get back to the room. So Maureen is saying when she sees a quilt that she wants to try, I'm notorious in putting a different spin on it. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm with you, Maureen, because I'm going to show you how in the progress that I made, and I started this project at 3 o'clock yesterday, I got about halfway done and I ran into a little boo-boo, and I'm going to show you, warts and all, what happened. But I love that you're putting your own spin with, and that really resonates, I know, with people like Yoan, who just wants to be that amazing phoenix and unicorn. And I encourage it, you know, like put your own spin on it. All right, so Emma has this book. It is so beautiful. She has the ditching the imposter syndrome, and you know, I'm close to 50, gang. When is it time for me to just own it, right? And thank you, Melissa. It's antecedents. I was close. So you have your descendants, those who come in the life after you, and then you have your antecedents, the people that were like, you know, you blame everything on them. Yeah, or Mrs. Kravitz, thank you, ancestors. I just say, you know, where are your people from? And then Valerie says, I can't ever follow a pattern exactly, and I constantly change things. You know, I have been there, and one of my most successful quilts is my lemon pepper quilt. If you're not familiar, jump on my Instagram, because I got so much attention for that quilt that it was a mistake. I was trying to follow someone else's pattern, and it just was not working. I know Charlotte from Charlotte, Welcome to Charlotte's House podcast. She is amazing with prints, but like when I was trying to do my prints and line everything up with the pattern, it did not work. It did not work one bit. So I ran with it, and the funniest thing is it became one of my best, most popular, amazing quilts. So yeah, I'm very happy for you, Valerie. You know, constantly change things and break the rules. And Melissa, you know, she's right there with you, Valerie. And Mrs. Kravitz, she says she loves opening a book and finding someone else's notes and in markings. It's a window into someone else's thoughts other than myself. And it's really good. So the problem would be is when you put things away and you can't find them to find those notes. Mrs. Kravitz likes to do that. All right, so then Kathleen, she just walked into the room. Howdy, Kathleen. And yes, we could do our very own book club. And I will also say, gang, I'm thinking about having a Friday night Zoom meeting, just, you know, very casual, low-key, every Friday night. What would you guys think of that? I think that would be fun. And we could talk about the book. All right, so yes, Valerie loves my lemon pepper. Thank you. And then Kathleen, she says she loves the lemon pepper quilt. Yeah, and absolutely very happy with it. All right, so we've identified, and I'll take you back here just so we can kind of get back on track. So we have identified all of our pieces, and then it's time to pull out, your ruler. Gonna need one of those, and this one, you can't see it, but this one's all angles. You may need a little baby ruler. How about that? Can you see it? There we go, baby ruler. And then one thing that I found that was interesting, and actually one of the most helpful things. Now, I love Barbara Brackman's, what is it? Encyclopedia of Piece Quilts. If you don't have that, it is a game changer, because if you're ever stuck on trying to find a variation, you don't really want to sit there and doodle for a long time. What are the known patches out there? And another encyclopedia is the Quilter's Album of Patchwork Patterns. This one is by Ginny Beyer, and the one thing that I love about this one, I love this one because even though it doesn't have any kind of accompanying software, what it does have is pretty useful. It comes with some acrylic templates, and these are grids. So if you remember when I started this conversation, I was saying that you need to understand what is the anatomy of this quilt. Are we dealing with even? Are we dealing with uneven grids? But primarily, and with the exception of any of your octagons or any of your star-pointed blocks, generally speaking, everything is on a grid. And the grid, I'm going to show you here. Let's go down tight. So I'm going to read this for you. I don't expect you to read on your screen. You may be on a mobile phone. I get it. But just to show you that you may have a 2x2 block, you may have a 2x2 grid, 4x4 grid, 8x8, 16x16. So every time these are doubling. Then there's the base 3. So if you have 3x3, 6x6, 12x12, 24x24, or you can go a 5x5, even 14x14. It just goes on. Now, this is a whole nother conversation that we are not going to get into today. But then when you're talking about your star grids, those are another beast. For simplicity's sake, we're not going to consider those, but I just want you to realize that they're out there, and that's a whole nother conversation that we definitely could get into. So for our case, I'm looking at that these are on a grid. And to be 100% honest, I don't even worry about the number of grids. I just kind of understand that they exist, that if I'm looking for consistency and I'm not worried about the entire quilt, but I'm just working on a section of it, then what are those even increments that I have to work with? So if I'm looking for consistency and that even of what I'm working with, then let's just talk about the stripes. The stripes is a very reoccurring theme with this particular quilt. I have a stripe in the sashing, I have a stripe in the outer border, and then I also have stripes in these pyramids in this 9x9 patch. So it's all a series of stripes. And if I'm thinking about breaking those down, then I can start thinking, okay, is there any, if everything is consistent, which in my case it is, then all I have to do is start taking stock, take inventory. How many do I need of each of the units that or the subunits that we just looked at? And then what are the sizes? Now, when I'm looking at an existing pattern that I want to replicate, then I'm just looking at, well, if this, and I'm going to use my ruler that it's hard to see, but it's happening. This, if I'm just talking about where we started, and that's the inner white block right here, I'm going to take that first as my measurement. I like to work my way inside out, and then I'm just going to find out that, oh, that's an inch. And then if I look at this way, that's an inch. So I've confirmed, yes, I'm dealing with a square. Then I can kind of just either eyeball it on my cutting mat and just say, okay, what is an inch by inch? And then how much do I really, what is an inch there? And like, how much do I really want that inner square to be? And you're not making any commitments yet, but you could decide that, like, hey, make a decision right now, early in the stage. Do you want this to be a full-on quilt? How big are you talking? Is this going to be a king size? Is this going to be a wall hanging? Is this going to be a mini quilt? So kind of set your agenda early on and decide right now what is the size, the ultimate size that you want to be within. Then as you're starting out with these units and you're assessing what the size is of everything, then you can say, okay, for every 1/8 of an inch or every 1/4 inch or every 1/2 inch or every inch, what does that mean in real life? So for me, I was looking at the stripes, and that's actually after I decided on this, I actually looked at my stripes and I thought, you know what, 1/4 of an inch is really good for me, and that's 1/4 of an inch finished, that I'm going to decide that's what I want my stripe to be. So in this fence, and I'm going to call this my fence, my inner fence, I know that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those solid red, and then there's 4 of the gray. And then I was able to, and I didn't do a sample or anything like that. I just was looking at my cutting mat, and I was just like, you know what? I think for stripes, I think 1/4 of an inch is groovy. And that was my first rule. So from there, every time that I'm having to deal with any kind of stripes, I always used 1/4 of an inch as my rule. And then once I understood, okay, if this is 1/4 of an inch, and then I think this was at 9 times 0.5, that's 2, Alexa, 9 times 0.25.
9 times 0.25 is 2.25.
There we go. 2.25. So this should be 2.25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And actually it's 4.5. Yeah, because I made these 1/2 inch, not 1/4 inch. So now I've got my first measurement. I know that this finished is going to be 4.5, because these are not 1/4, these are actually half an inch big. So I hope that that's not confusing you, but you're just establishing your working rules to how this quilt is going to play out. And then as you take each segment and you're building on that, and then you're going back and forth between each of the pieces to really enable you to decide, the quilt is actually going to talk to you, and you're going to start learning what those sizes should be. So I continued with that, and I was going through all of my different pieces, and as I'm writing down my laundry list of how many subunits I need for each piece, and then what the sizes were for each piece, Don't forget, gang, big rule is don't forget your seam allowance. The seam allowance is always going to bite you in the end if you don't offer it. So when I'm considering what I'm making, it is going to be it's going to be what the finished size, but then you're adding your 1/2 inch to both sides. So if there's a top and the bottom, you're adding your seam allowance, and then you're going to create your little pieces. And the only time that I really kind of made a mistake was like I forgot when I was doing one of my triangles. But that's the nice thing, is you can always unpick things, or you can kind of fudge it a little bit and do some creative adjustments. So let me show you where I've gotten so far, and here we go. We have, I'm going to get rid of this book. So I've actually got the center done, and I'm really pleased. So let's put this on the diagonal so that it matches. But I'm actually getting very excited that, you know, everything is coming together. And I will say, one of the funny things about this, this quilt, when you look at it, this quilt was from, oh darn, it doesn't tell it what year. It doesn't tell what year this one, but I know it's not, you know, like this is an old quilt. And what I thought was funny is that when I blew this picture up and I was noticing it, there was a little bit of like waviness to it, and you can see where they were actually struggling with making sure that it was all crisp and sharp. But I actually thought that I mean, like, it looks impeccable. Now, what's awesome is that I'm going to show you, again, I always promise you warts and all. Let me show you one of the warts and how I'm going to fix it. So, remember when I was saying that the triangles, I kind of messed up on, or had the half pyramids, I kind of messed up on the seam allowance. And if you notice here, where's my little, here it is, my little pencil. Yeah, this supposed to be, this right here, there's a little gap missing. And I was like, damn it. And it happened here, it happened here. And it only happened on the ones that the ones that I cut backwards, because this was an interesting thing, that when I was using my, let me get my ruler here. So when I was using my 45-degree angle ruler, when I was going and I was doing this, and you're cutting, everything was fine to cut these little triangles. It was fine. But then what I realized when I went to cut the 5th one, because I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. I have 4 that live on the right of this white block. So if I'm thinking about this triangle, I have this white block to the right. It was always landing very nicely. And then when I went to cut the one on the opposite side, when I went to cut this one here, it was going wonky, and the stripes wanted to lay this way. It wasn't until I realized that I actually needed to cut it, and it looked a little weird, and I wasn't considering my seam allowance, and it just got messed up. So I have to do a little creative fixing, and I am 100% okay with that. This guy right here is I made a little patch. I took another piece of fabric, glue it down, and I know that when I go to quilt, I'm just going to be quilting right on there. I'm actually going to do, not stitch in the ditch, but I'm going to quilt it so that there are stitches, 2 parallel lines running like this, and then kind of this way and this way. So for every stripe that I have, there's going to be 2 parallel lines that run down. That's going to secure this one in place. Who's going to know? Who's gonna know? When it's hanging up on my wall or something, I'm gonna be very proud of it, and it's not going to any prize-winning quilt show. So yeah, so I think I'm really pleased about how it's coming out so far, and the only thing that I changed, that for me, I was like, I didn't want to go crisp white. My walls are white. I don't want white on the wall. So I was like, okay, let me give it a little gray, and then a darker gray towards the center. And then with the, what I'm gonna do is the outer border, I'm gonna have that either that same darker gray, so it's a really heavy charcoal, or I might even go really, really, almost like a lead pencil, like really, really dark. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm actually excited because I feel like I've already gotten over the hard part, which was just doing these inner and making sure that my waffle is getting right. But I think it's really turning out well. And excuse me, I kid you not, I labored and labored and labored, and then I just finally said to myself, you know what you're doing, just do it. And I started at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I got to going, and I didn't stop until bedtime because I was having so much fun. So yeah, so let's see what you guys have to say. Okay, so Valerie says, oh, the seam allowance has gotten me before in sewing. So yeah, it's just one of those things that we all know we need sewing seam allowance, and you can't forget it. It's a necessary, it's really important. And then Melissa was asking, is it a 7x7 within the border? 7x7 within the border. I'm not quite sure. I need your finger right here to show me exactly what the question is, but hit me up, let me know, and I'll try to answer for you. And then we have Charlotte. Thank you for being supportive. She loves it. And then Stuart, he says, yeah, wow, amazing. Yeah, and I'm really, yeah, and so Emma is like, the overthinking part is like, yeah, you really do, you want to make sure that you're headed in the right direction. But another little reminder that is always helpful is that measure twice, if not thrice. Measure twice, cut once, because you're going to be sorry if you don't, especially when you're making, oh, I forgot. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I have to have it. It's that. Did you guys see when I made my sash yesterday? I had a little sash that I made. Let's go here. I'm going to go to, I just closed the window. You're going to love this because I need some help. All right, so I'm going to my profile. Did you guys see I made a sash for myself? And Yoan, he was saying that my title should be Misunderstood. I think that was it. What would my title be? Mistake? Misbehaving? What did I win for? What did I win for? I had to have, sometimes you got to make your own sash and just be silly and throw it out into the world. So yeah, comment below, what would my title be? Misbehaving, mistake, misbelieve. What would it be? I don't know. Yes. And then Susan's loving the quilting is such a fantastic brain exercise, and absolutely, I could not agree more. Okay, so yeah, okay, here we go. Yoan's comments. I love this. His title for me is Misshapen 2022. How rude. I absolutely love that. I should own that. Misshapen 22. Here he is. I'll drink to that. All right, keep them coming. All right, so now that I've got the basic inside done, and I've done the basic outside done. I'm sorry, the basic inside done, because then all I really have to do is those outer triangles, these outer pyramids, and then the, I'm going to consider this an inner border because I don't want to cut all of this at once, because that would require me to do, make my, let me see if I can show an example here. If I were to include the that outer border, or I'm sorry, this border right here as I'm cutting out those pyramids, that border only resides at the bottom. So I would want to do the ability to flip it over, so I'm getting the most use out of those, that width of fabric out of stripes that I just made. And so if I did the white, then I would only be able to do bump, 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 just sequential instead of being able to rotate it. And so I'm going to do that separately. But this is not a big deal. I think this is going to be the fun part when I create those triangles, and then I'm going to add the bottom, and then I'll have two of those that I can just put together, and then those will actually go to the inside. And I think that would be pretty simple. I think the hard part is already done. And then the last thing that this particular project, I was really, when it comes to all these corners matching up, it really was important for me not to just, even with nesting my seams, I really had to use pinning to make sure that everything was going to flow and it was going to sit right. So pinning really, really helped. And I see that Tracy just stepped into the room. She's late. I guess she had late tea tonight for dinner. And I guess that's dinner for dinner, but she was late. But welcome, Tracy, better than never, as Emma said. Emma says, yay, she gave her 2 thumbs up. Better late than ever. And then Melissa, your comment just came in. My mom always says better late than dead on time. Ooh, I don't want to be dead on time. Yeah, always. All right, so I hope, if anything, this wasn't a real teaching moment, but it was really just me sharing with you what I do know, what I can offer, and what I can share in my strategy as I work without a pattern. I really do hope it was helpful for you, and I would absolutely love to see go to the Quilt Stream community on Facebook. If you have a quilt that you've replicated, I would love to see the original, where the inspiration came from, how you replicated it, or and how you ran with it. This is not so much just designing your own quilt from scratch. This is actually replicating and working off of someone else's design and making it your own. That's kind of really my emphasis on this particular chat. But I would love to put those comments in the Quilt Stream community, and then don't let the conversation stop here in the live. I would love for you to comment below, and then don't forget, I had that sash, and then you can give me my 2022 title, not Misshapen 2022. And then, yeah, as always, don't forget, like and subscribe. Jump on there, give it a love. And as always, I really am appreciative that you joined in, and I hope you keep quilting and you had some fun. So make it a great day. I will see you. Oh my gosh, Lisa, I'm just signing off, but I wanted to say hello. We love you, Lisa, from Ireland. We're just signing off. So, gang, happy happy Tuesday to you, and I'll see you on Friday. And think about the Zoom meetings. I would love to do like a little a little, quilting session with other sewists on maybe Friday nights. I'm thinking about starting it. Who knows? If you guys want to, that would be awesome, and let's do it. So, have a great remainder of your week, and I'll see you on Friday. Be good. Bye-bye.